Welcome, Pewter Report readers and listeners and viewers, to the latest edition of the Pewter Report podcast. I'm Scott Reynolds. Alongside me is Mark Cook, and we're going to be joined by Bucs legend and good friend of ours, Warren Sapp, in a couple of minutes. He's going to be talking not just about the Bucs' recent Super Bowl, but also keeping it relevant, keeping it current, talking about some of the Bucs guys that they might be interested in, right? Some defensive tackles. That's his specialty, of course, as a Hall of Famer, and also some edge rush guys, too. The Buccaneers, of course, Mark, re-signed Shaq Barrett, and they got Jason Pierre-Paul back, so they got their bookend pass rushers back for another year. I know Shaq and Sapp are very close. Sapp was rooting for him hard to break his single-season Bucs sack record in 2019, which he did, with 19 and a half sacks to lead the league. And Warren Sapp, I had a conversation with him last week in setting up the podcast. He was excited to have Shaq back in Tampa to help this Buccaneers squad try to repeat, but at the same time, wasn't really happy that he only got $17 million. He said if he was Shaq, he would have certainly tested free agency just to see what other teams would have been paying him. But listen,
and I liked his reasoning, Scott. He said, "You franchised me last year, so." Yeah, a little bit of spiteful Warren there, but it may, I see where he's coming from. I mean, you franchised me, you didn't let me see what I could get when I had 19 and a half sacks, and now when I only have 8 sacks, now you want to throw a contract out my way. That's typical Sapp. That's why I can't wait to have him on this broadcast, because he doesn't hold anything back. Unfiltered, Warren Sapp.
No, you never know what you're going to get either from Warren Sapp, which is exciting, riveting. And can be a little dangerous. So we'll see. We'll see which direction he takes us. I know nothing about the draft prospects in terms of what Sapp is going to say. Now, we had a conversation on the phone last week, and he wanted to put his expertise. And listen, you and I both know, Mark, and we're not blowing smoke here. This is one of the smartest football players I've ever covered, and I'm sure the same for you.
Yeah, no, Warren is, he's very smart. He's very intelligent. I mean, certainly he was blessed with some amazing God-given abilities, but, Warren wasn't a guy that just completely relied on that. I mean, from the shoulders up was as good as from the shoulders down for this guy. And the fact that you gave him some homework, I love that, Scott. I mean, you gave me some homework too, but you gave him some homework and he jumped right on it. I mean, he sent us a video of him watching film. I mean, he's deadly serious about looking into this. And I like his breakdowns that he does on Twitter after games and things like that, where he takes a look at Buccaneer players and things like that. Not even just Buccaneer players. Right. Again, unfiltered, doesn't hold anything back. That's why we love Warren Sapp.
Yeah, so we got about a dozen prospects that Sapp's going to talk about today. Real quick rundown, and I know your guys are waiting for the Celsius plug, and we're going to get to that in a second. But the defensive tackles: Alabama's Christian Barmore, Washington defensive tackle Levi Onwuzurike, who was in our latest Bucs mock draft on PewterReport.com. We got a new one coming out tomorrow, by the way. New 7-round Bucs mock draft drops tomorrow. Ohio State defensive tackle Tommy Togiai, Iowa defensive tackle Davion Nixon, North Carolina State defensive tackle Aleem McNeil, Texas A&M defensive tackle Bobby Brown III. When it comes to edge rushers, Penn State defensive end Jason Owe, Texas defensive end. These are all edge guys. Defensive end, outside linebackers. There'll be outside linebackers in Tampa should the Bucs draft them. Joseph Osai from Texas, Washington's Joe Tryon, Oklahoma's Ronnie Perkins, Northern Iowa's Ellerson Smith, and then a couple guys that Warren Sapp's familiar with coming from the U, right? Jalen Phillips, Quincy Roche, Gregory Rousseau. We'll get his thoughts on all those guys and more. We appreciate everybody tuning in to this Pewter Report podcast, which should be pretty special. We're expecting Warren Sapp around 4:15. And in the meantime, Mark, I think it's time for a little Celsius here, right? I got the orange sickle today. And Mark, I noticed you were talking about the orange sickle uniforms in your Pewter Report mailbag. So make sure you check out Mark's Pewter Report mailbag, drink one of these orange sickle Celsius heats, and let's go.
Sparkling grapefruit.
There
Sparkling
you go.
grapefruit.
There you go. You got
switching
one.
it up. Yes.
I love it. The Pewter Report podcast is sponsored, as always, by our good friends at Celsius. Best thing about Celsius when you're drinking this is whether it's the heat or whether it's the slim can version that Mark has got with the sparkling flavors, or even the green tea flavors, is you get the energy rush, the boost, but you don't get the crash because there's no sugar, no preservatives. So it's the healthiest energy drink you're going to find around. Where can you find it? Well, that's easy. Go to pewterreport.com, click on those Celsius banners. They'll take you to Amazon where you can buy them in bulk and save money. Or if you want to just grab a can just to try, a couple of these different flavors we've talked about on the Pewter Report podcast, go to Celsius.com, click on the store locator, type in your address, and all of a sudden, pop, you're going to find all of these convenience stores, grocery stores, health fitness stores that will sell Celsius near you. So, Mark, we had a chance to, and if you just are joining us now, we will be having Warren Sapp. He's already confirmed for today. So we're going to have Warren Sapp talking D-line, which is his specialty, of course. And we're going to have him talking about the top defensive ends, pass rushers, some of these defensive tackles. It's not a great class for defensive tackles, so it's going to be interesting to see what he has to say. Speaking of defensive tackles, the Bucs, I think, are playing a little bit of a waiting game, Mark, with Ndamukong Suh, with Leonard Fournette, with Antonio Brown. The guess here is that all three of those guys come back once the market kind of settles a little bit. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, there's some reports out that, and it started last week, that Russell Wilson was kind of campaigning to get Antonio Brown in Seattle, a little bit more chatter towards that. But, Scott, you've been doing this for 25 years now, maybe 26. This will be 11 for me. We know a lot of times these chatters and things we hear are agents, right? Kind of throwing some stuff out there. That doesn't mean Russell Wilson doesn't want him. It doesn't mean there wasn't some chatter there. But the fact that it was getting thrown out again today, makes you wonder where that's coming from. Listen, I could live without Leonard Fournette and Antonio Brown. It's not going to break my heart. If Levante David had left this football team, if Shaq Barrett had left this football team, then we got some major problems. But those two guys, I think, are a couple players the team can get by without, particularly at running back. I mean, I like what Antonio Brown brings to the team. I don't know that I trust Antonio Brown to make it an entire season. He did good in a half year last year, right? No policeman call that we know of. So, because Greg Allman would have found that because he reads the police blotter every day. But
John Ledyard from pewterreport.com, we broke the Jaden Mickens arrest.
That's true. John Ledyard giving Greg Allman a run for his money when it comes to the crime trackers of the NFL. So
we
good
hate
job
those
there, John.
Stories too.
I know.
Hate that. Let's just focus on football, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, we'll see what happens. There's no doubt about it. The Buccaneers are kind of letting the market settle. Scott, we talk about it every year. Right off the bat, March 17th, that's your first wave of free agency.
Yeah.
The following weekend, after the weekend comes, that's kind of your second wave of free agency. Then things kind of just settle down. And between now and the start of OTAs and things like that is kind of your third wave. And then right before training camp, there's some guys out there, a guy like DeMar Dotson last year that signed late with Denver, those kind of guys, and AQ Shipley that signed late with the Buccaneers. That's kind of your fourth tier of the free agency waves. Right now, we're kind of in between that second and third wave. And, from what we understand, Scott, some of these guys, and I don't know about Fournette and Brown, but there's some guys out there that are free agents that probably have a little bit higher opinion of themselves than the teams do. And that's why you're not seeing maybe as much movement as some people would like.
Right. Well, one of the guys that did re-sign with the Buccaneers is Rob Gronkowski. He spoke with the media today. And, we've got a couple of great sponsors on the Pewter Report podcast. And one I'm going to talk about right now, as it pertains to Gronkowski, is pretty cool. It's Playbook Products. Now, Playbook Products, if you haven't seen these guys in action yet, they've got some of the greatest Buccaneer plays. And what they do is they take those plays, they put them on things like coasters and wall art. And in this case, you can see here on the screen, some awesome coffee mugs. So we were just talking about that. They've got the Brady to Gronk Super Bowl touchdown. They've got Scotty Miller's touchdown right before the half at Green Bay. That plays all X's and O's and drawn up. They've also got, as you see here, the pick six to seal it. That's Tampa Bay beating Philadelphia at the Vet with Rondé Barber's 92-yard pick six. They also have Derek Brooks's pick six from Super Bowl 37. So with 200-plus teams, including pro and college, not to mention Tampa Bay Lightning, Stanley Cup playoffs goal by Anthony Cirelli in overtime in the conference finals, you can find some really cool plays, mementos, and awesome types of art on some amazing gifts. Go to playbookproducts.com. Get them for yourself. Again, they make great gifts for the friends and family members in your life. So playbookproducts.com.
That's really a cool concept. I like that a lot. I'm considering getting the Cedric Brown interception in 1981, the only score in that loss to the Broncos, my very first Buccaneer game for my 11th birthday present. I think I'm going to get that put on a coffee mug, maybe a T-shirt. I don't know, whatever they can do it on.
If
that would be pretty cool.
If they had the Cyril Grayson doink off the face mask,
that's the one I'm going to get you for your birthday this year.
I was going to say that would be an appropriate gift for me.
Yes.
I think. So, what you were on the conference call with Gronkowski today. Again, Warren Sapp joining us here in a matter of minutes to talk about the defensive line prospects and edge rushers in this draft class. But it sounded like Rob Gronkowski was very excited to be back in Tampa. He also said that he wants to continue to do one-year deals, and it's interesting because we're kind of talking, back in the Super Bowl days here with Warren Sapp, but Rondé Barber was like that too. Mark, this was a guy that the last, I think, 3 years of his playing career, he and Mark Dominic kept doing those one-year deals. He played all the way through the Schiano years, and it sounds like Gronk wants to kind of do the same thing.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, he doesn't know what his future holds. I mean, look, the guy's made a lot of money. He's got a lot of money. He's popular. He's got a supermodel girlfriend. He travels the world. He's all over Instagram. He's got YouTube channels.
Are you saying he's living his best life? Is that what you're saying?
He's everything that every one of us watching and listening to this podcast wants to be. We all want to grow up and be Rob Gronkowski one day. The guy's amazing, and he's a character. He's great. Hope, we can't wait to get back to normalcy, Scott, in terms of all this COVID situation where we can get back in that locker room. Could you imagine a Wednesday afternoon? There are sometimes, Scott, even the last few years, it's Thursday, week 13. We've asked every player everything, okay, we got 45 minutes to stand around the locker room. I will never be bored if Rob Gronkowski is in that locker room. He's going to hold court. It's going to be a great time all the way around. But Rob wants to sign one-year deals. He doesn't know each year. It all depends on how his body feels. He was able to play 20 games last year, which was really amazing, because if you would have taken odds with one of our other great sponsors, of course, but if you would have made a bet with me, Scott, on if Rob was going to be able to manage to play, if, say, for instance, the Buccaneers did make 20 games, would he be able to do it? Or even a 16-game schedule? I would have said no. I mean, the guy had a ton of lingering injuries, and that's one of the reasons why he retired. I mean, he was just beat up. His body was physically beat up. And in this Tampa Heat, we know it's notorious for guys having soft tissue injuries and things like that, and just the wear and tear of the Heat early on in training camp. But he made it. He did a great job. But one-year contracts make a lot of sense for him.
They do. And the interesting thing too is when you look at the O.J. Howard situation, right? I mean, O.J. Howard was lost after week 4? Actually, week 4 is the Chargers
game,
right? So that made Rob Gronkowski have to play a lot more snaps than I think even he or the team anticipated, because he really was kind of fulfilling that role of that multi-dimensional tight end, the guy that was the inline blocker as well as the receiving target, because that's not exactly Cam Brate's strength.
No,
and you saw Anthony Auclair get injured a bit, and then Tanner Hudson, that's not his role. He's more of just that pure move tight end, that H-back, that receiving type tight end at this stage of his career. And Gronkowski ended up playing a ton of snaps and didn't miss a single game. Did have a shoulder injury that he played through, but looked like when he was catching those 2 touchdowns at Raymond James Stadium on Super Bowl Sunday that he was certainly A-okay.
Yeah, he was. And, one of the things that I asked him about specifically today, everybody has speculated how good this offense could be in year 2 with Tom Brady and Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich, and virtually returning, hopefully, pretty much everybody on this team. Another year with this offensive line. O.J. Howard will be back. Tom Brady will be in his second year. Rob talked about, he wasn't at his best. I mean, as well as we can say that he played, he didn't really feel he was at his best because he was learning a new playbook. He was getting acclimated to new teammates and things like that. So, he thinks there's no question that this team can be a heck of a lot better next year, and will be a heck of a lot better with a second year in the system, and him in particular, which I thought was kind of refreshing hearing from a guy who's pretty much done it all. Doesn't have a whole lot left to prove in the NFL, but he cautioned everybody. We're going to bring everybody back. The defense is back. Everybody's excited. It doesn't matter. We have to put in the work. The work still has to be done. We can't just show up the first day of training camp or the first game and flip a switch. He said it, and this was a great quote from Rob too. It's hard to win a playoff game. It's hard to win a Super Bowl. But he said it's hard to win a regular season game. So to repeat a Super Bowl champs is not an easy thing to do, but it's certainly something that he and his teammates are really geared up to try and do.
And you know what? You look at this market, and going back to what Rob just said there, when you look at the fact that the Buccaneers trailed the Chargers and the Falcons, two teams that didn't make the playoffs, they trailed by 17 points. They trailed the Chargers at home, and they trailed the Falcons on the road late in the season, right when the Buccaneers were really picking up some steam and were pretty healthy. That I think Donovan Smith missed that Falcons game. Josh Wells got the start in that game. But, when you look at that and having to come back from 17-point deficits, it just goes to show you that that's exactly what Rob Gronkowski means is, on any given Sunday, right? Yeah. And not just that, but especially this year with the Bucs being Super Bowl champions,
right?
You're going to get every team's best, every team, not just the playoff caliber teams, not just the NFC South teams, but the teams that are like the bottom feeders, the teams that didn't make the playoffs, right?
Because it's their Super Bowl, Scott. They know they're not a playoff team in 2021, whatever these teams are, the bottom feeders. We saw that with the Buccaneers. Listen, the Buccaneers, and I saw Mark Fisher's on here. He's a longtime 1976 Buccaneer guy, too. I remember games in the 80s when the Buccaneers were just awful, but they would play up to the Bears when the Bears would come to town, or the Packers, or maybe a better team, whoever it was, because it was their Super Bowl. It was their game that they scheduled the beginning of the season. Hey, we can really make a name for ourselves if we were to beat this particular team. And the Buccaneers occasionally did it. Most of the time they ended up losing late in the game. But my point is when the schedule comes out, and it's going to be later this year, 1st of May, it's going to be after the draft. So, but teams are going to be looking at that. We're going to be facing the world champion Buccaneers. They're going to be up for every single game. And the Buccaneers are going to have to match that intensity because, believe it or not, and I know a lot of people don't believe this, the difference between the best team in the league, the Super Bowl winner, and the Jets, it's not a ton of talent difference. No. It's really not. There's a lot of factors that go into it, but overall talent-wise, it's not always that much, and you can lose.
The Jets beat the Rams late in the season, did they not?
I think that was their one win this year.
And the thing too is when you look at at that Falcons game, and I think this kind of speaks to what Rob Gronkowski was saying. They scored 31 points, Mark, in the second half to come back to beat the Falcons, right? And there were no defensive touchdowns. There were some takeaways there to help the Buccaneers, turn it around. But it wasn't like there was a special team score. There wasn't a scoop and score. There were no pick sixes. That was, that was a situation where the offense maxed out, I think, on every possession, put points on the board, scored 31 points. And it's that reason why I thought that 2021 was going to be the year the Bucs went to the Super Bowl, especially given the COVID conditions that knocked out the OTAs, the mini camps, the truncated training, that took away the preseason games, where Tristan Wirfs and Antoine Winfield and Rob Gronkowski and Tom Brady are playing their first games as Buccaneers. And for Winfield and Wirfs, it was their first NFL game ever against the defending NFC South champion New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. So to me, that's an instance where, I expected 2021 to be even better, especially from the offensive side. And I think it's going to be. I think that's the scary thing.
And you know what, Scott? I think the defense is going to be better because, honestly, when you talk about some of those games that the Buccaneers were trailing in, that Chargers game, they were giving up long touchdown passes to some players that I'd never heard of, some Chargers receivers, right? Some undrafted free agents they're burning them for 80-yard touchdowns. There was a couple long touchdown throws by Justin Herbert in the first half of that game. The Falcons were just moving the ball at will in that first half in that game. And this defense kind of caught fire there in the second half and then played better down the stretch. Daniel Jones almost beat this football team. Nick Foles did beat this football team. This defense is going to be a better football team too in 2021. You know who else said the same thing that you said? And I think we all agreed that, whatever happened in 2020, that would just be gravy. I was talking to Jake Arians last week and he said the same thing. He said, I was 2020 was house money, hey, make the playoffs, and we help change the culture. Brady gets here, he starts getting in a groove, and it's all about 2021. Well, they exceeded all expectations last year. And that clearly puts the bullseye and the target directly on that football team, as we talked about for every game this upcoming season.
Yep. So we had a rundown of the players that we're going to talk about when Warren Sapp joins us here in just a few minutes.
He will join us. You people in the chat that are questioning it, don't question Sapp. I'm gonna mention you name by name.
I've already texted Sapp today. He's already confirmed. He just said, "How about 4:15?" And I said, "That's fine." So we're on Warren Sapp's time. Whenever he shows, it's whenever he shows. And
right on cue.
Right on cue. What's up, Warren? How you doing?
What's good, baby?
How are you?
I'm trying to find a way to make it between heaven and earth without touching dirt anywhere, baby. I was running home to get on the damn podcast. I think, damn it. They would pick the one day that I had a little time off. Damn it.
We appreciate you joining the Pewter Report podcast, Warren, as always. And I wanted to just kind of start off real quick. Everyone's excited about getting
sure
your
my Wi-Fi is up and running so I can not break up too much. I hate when I'm breaking up.
That's all right. We got you good. We got you loud and clear. But I wanted to real quick get your thoughts as the original Super Bowl champion, just what it was like for you watching the 2020 version of the Buccaneers make the Super Bowl and win it at Raymond James Stadium.
It was refreshing because, when your franchise hadn't won a championship in 18 years and hadn't won a playoff game since you left, there's been some slim pickings around there as far as playoff things that we yell about. And when I saw Tom had the boys all locked up and ready to go and you were going to need 35 to come anywhere close to beating us, oh, yeah. I started betting. I ain't got to be honest, baby. I started betting. You know what I'm saying? I used to not be a bettor when I played the game, but I done got a little adventurous in my old age.
Warren, would you have bet that this Todd Bowles defense would have kept that Kansas City high-powered offense out of the end zone on Super Bowl Sunday?
Not out of the end zone, but I knew we had a chance to kick their ass because they had no offensive line.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have two guys opt out at the beginning of the year and they don't want anything to do with it, and then Shaq, JPP, Vita had done came back and started getting good pressure up the middle. Him and Sue were working good together. So
yeah,
I look at the front. You know me. I look at the front and I keep it 100. The front was ready to go and we ready to kick a little bootay. How about that?
Yes. And one of those guys to kick some bootay in the postseason was Shaq Barrett, who got the franchise tag the previous year, cashed in on a big deal. You and I had a conversation about Shaq last week. It was kind of a bittersweet thing for you in terms of, yes, he's back in pewter and red, but did he cash in though?
No, I'll tell you exactly what I said. I mean, I ain't got nothing to hide in the conversation. I tell you, I'd have took a peek over the damn fence and see what somebody else was going to offer me. I mean, that's the ultimate thing in the National Football League is to get a shot, a peek at a free agent contract.
Yeah.
Shit, 170 ain't bad. 200 is a little bit better, and 250 is even better. So why wouldn't you? But I have to give you a report. I looked up, and you gave me this information that Rosenhaus was his agent.
Yeah.
So I hit Drew and said, why wouldn't Shaq look and get another offer from another team? And he ran down the normal bullshit about this and that, and the salary cap coming down. I'm like, yeah, when the fuck has that ever mattered? Like kind of like the Mooney rule. No one gives a damn. What's the fine?
Right.
If I think I'm gonna win a championship, what's the fine again? Okay, all right, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Well, Warren, you have you've become really Pewter Report's chief actually, we'll call it director of scouting. How about that? We'll give you that title. When it comes to defensive line, there's only two people I turn to in the NFL for supreme knowledge, and you're at the top of the list. So you kind of took it upon yourself to do some scouting of these guys, and we greatly appreciate it. And I wanted to get your thoughts on these defensive linemen. Warren, are you ready to break down some of these guys?
Let's go.
All right. Let's talk about a guy that I think most of the mock drafts have the Bucs taking if they're going to go defensive line in the first round, and that's Christian Barmore from Alabama. What do you know about this kid, Warren?
I got the worst Wi-Fi in the history of the world. I didn't hear any of that.
Okay. Christian Barmore from Alabama. What are your thoughts on him?
It sounds like it's bouncing off of a ricochet and hit me back in the face. I have no idea what you just said to me.
We'll try it one more time. Christian Barmore from Alabama.
Christian Barmore. What's the book on him?
Yeah.
What's the book? What are they saying?
Yeah, did first defensive tackle off the board, 8 sacks, 3 forced fumbles last year, basically a 2-year guy at Alabama.
That first round guy, I heard?
Yes, that's what a lot of the mock drafts say.
Let's wait for the evaluation, because what I saw when I went over there to Yo Murphy Performance Center was not even third round material.
Really? And you had a chance to meet the kid and spend some time with him?
Oh, no. A chance to get him on the football field and walk him through the 5 steps to the quarterback. And if they're telling me that this is a first round guy, then Aaron Donald did get blocked 70% of the time in a double team.
So you're not a big Barmore fan?
I just promise you this. If these eyes right here that you're looking at is telling you a lie about talent, then shoot me. I won't talk no more football. If this kid's a first pick, I won't talk football.
What didn't you like about his game? And then we'll move on to other guys.
I won't make a tweet or Instagram post unless it's the kids, playing sports. Nothing personal.
Right.
I'll take off a whole year if Barmore is a first round pick.
Wow. Okay. All right. How about Washington defensive tackle Levi Onwuzurike?
I heard Washington's defense.
Yeah, the defensive tackle, Levi Onwuzurike, the defensive tackle from Washington.
Oh, that is the one guy that I looked at that said he's a project. Mm-hmm. Not first round, not second round, maybe mid-third round. He's a project. He's got some size. He's got a little wiggle to him. I saw him do a spin move, so his feet ain't too bad. But other than that, if you're looking for a nose tackle, go find the big brown dude. The big brown dude from Texas A&M has got little wheels on him, and he played with a Q-tip on his hand, so I know he's tough. So whenever you play with a Q-tip on, I've done that in a football game. That shit is tough. To play with a Q-tip and you can't stick it in your ear. Yeah. Huh?
You like the kid Bobby Brown from Texas A&M, 6'4", 325 pounds.
If you're looking for a nose tackle, then that's where you go. But he's got to lose 15, 20 pounds. That's what my notes say, 15, 20 pounds. Then he'll be a lot better guy, mobile, maybe a bowling ball or butcher knives. But other than that, there's slim pickings inside. I promise you. It is not there. And if anybody's telling you they have more than – if they're telling you it's 2 first-round defensive tackles, they're lying.
Why, Warren? Why is Barmore so high on all of these mock drafts? Do you think the mock draft people have him higher than the NFL evaluators themselves when they look at the film?
I guarantee you they do, because what you look at in the scout is the eye test on the tape. He was in the national championship game. I thought the kid was a baller myself. I couldn't wait to get up there, dude. I'm telling you, Mark, I was going 1-2 of the 5 steps to the quarterback. I'll send it to you after this, Scott, when we get finished. You look at it and you tell me if you see first round talent.
Okay. All right. So, just in case.
And neither 3 of us is making a pick. And I'm betting my whole social media life he ain't going first round. I'm guaranteeing. No way. No chance.
Wow. Okay. Wow. That's something. And
that's news. That's news right there.
You personally worked out Christian Barmore here in Tampa too. So you had the hands-on experience with that.
Yeah, I got up at 5:30 in the morning and drove to Tampa to get there by 10:30. Yeah.
And you were not
I
impressed.
threw my hat. And my lovely Roka sunglasses that are light as a feather because, I ride them on the bike. You got to have light sunglasses. So I've thrown my hat and my sunglasses. And at one point, I'm sitting there like, do this. And he was doing something else.
Wow.
To the point where another person said, you're not doing that. And then he looked at both of us and were like, what? So I tried it one more time. And then when he didn't do it that time, I picked up my glasses and my visor and I walked off. I didn't say another word to anybody. I just left.
Wow.
How in the world, this is amazing to me, when you've got a legendary football player trying to coach you up and give you technique and trying to evaluate you.
I'm not coaching you up. I'm just watching what you're doing and see if I can shave a little corner for you.
Right.
Because I've watched this position. These eyes ain't going to lie to me 4 feet down.
Was he just not taking direction, Warren, or was he just not have the ability to follow direction? Because there's a big difference there.
Both.
That's scary.
If I tell you, Mark, swing your left arm and you move your right, I got a real issue with you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's just one example. Trust me, for me to throw my visor and throw my, $300 Murata glasses on, I'm telling you, I'm like, is there something wrong with me? Because sometimes I could be a little, little like sandpaper, let's say,
a little gritty.
No, not you, Warren. No, never.
Never, right? Nah.
Never.
A little coarse, let's say a little coarse,
Right.
I have a direct way of speaking.
You do.
I'm like, maybe I'm losing him, so I broke it down, just 1-2, like a good boxer, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2.
Oh boy.
He went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I went, how many steps did you just take? He's like 4 or 5. You ain't even definite on how many you took, 4 or 5. And I say, what drill are we doing?
Oh wow.
1, 2. 1, 2. How many steps did you take? 4 or 5. What the?
So you're not impressed with this defensive tackle class?
Good thing they don't have a combine this year, I guess.
Yeah, right. So you're not impressed with this defensive tackle class. Levi Onwuzurike, the Washington kid, really was kind of miscast as a nose tackle. He was probably more of a 3-tech at the next level. But yeah. You said there's something to work with there. His hands were flashing a little bit on tape?
No, his feet, his balance, just his overall game.
Okay.
Yeah, his overall game. He had some things that you can work with. He has some things on tape that you see that you can build upon.
Yeah.
And so does the Brown kid if you're looking for a nose tackle.
Right.
The kid from Iowa, 54, Davin.
Yeah, Davion Nixon.
There it is, him.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. He got 7 sacks. So, you know me, I like to just put the tape on and watch it. So, see if they jump out like a turd in the punch bowl. Because if you're a first-round pick, you should be the best of the 11 guys on your football field unless you're playing with me, Ray Lewis, and C.J. Richardson in the back. You might be number 3 on the tape, Yep. So I'm watching the tape, and I'm like, all right, let me just go to the sacks, so I know they made a play. It said he had 4 sacks versus ILNW. Can somebody identify that school?
No, no idea.
I didn't know Illinois had a directional school because Illinois doesn't even have an east. It's just north to south. West. There's no east. How the hell they got a directional school in Chicago? But ILNW, I'm like, he had 4 against them?
IL would be Illinois, and then NW would be Northwestern. But I guess maybe they're saying between those 2 games he got those sacks, maybe. So I don't know.
No, this one game.
That's 1 game. Okay. And really, the other guy that is getting some acclaim, and we've seen him emerging in 2nd, 3rd round for mocks, is the NC State kid Aleem McNeil, 6'2", 320. He played 3-tech as a junior. He was a nose tackle last year. Really kind of miscast. 5.5 sacks in 2019, only 1 sack last year. What do you remember about the North Carolina State kid, Aleem McNeil?
Wow. I wish you was on the other end of this and they would have heard you the way you were bouncing around, sound like a Chinese guy. Don't.
Technology's great when it works. How about?
I'm telling you, I got the worst Wi-Fi in the history of life. Verizon.
And then he disappears. He wasn't lying. He does have the worst Wi-Fi.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to try to
warn
back here in a second.
This is good. We need a break. We need a couple second break to recover. He's just firing stuff off. I'm telling you, man. Jeez Louise, Warren is the best, man. He doesn't hold anything back.
Yeah. So not a fan of Christian Barmore. That's kind of newsworthy right there.
Yeah. And not just a fan of his game, but his inability to take direction, and that's scary, man. I mean, that's a big part of the evaluation that these guys are going to make when they have the opportunity to meet these guys one-on-one and have these visits and things like that. I'm not sure, Scott, what's the latest on teams having and being able to have one-on-one visits, and normally they can have like 30 visits per year or whatever it is pre-draft. What's the latest, or what have you heard as far as that's going as in terms of the NFL right now?
Well, I mean, they're going to be doing the Zoom visits. That's really the thing. They're going to be doing that Zoom visit stuff again this year. I don't think they're going to be having any teams visit. I don't think that's going to be the case at all. I'm not a huge fan of the Zoom visits, especially since we're kind of getting back to some sort of normalcy. But
you need to be. I mean, he gave a perfect example of why you want to take that guy back on the field at One Buccaneer Place, because there wasn't a combine this year, and you're missing out on something that you want to know what type of direction you want. Casey Rogers to work with this guy for a minute and see what kind of direction he's going to be able to take and handle, and you can't do that really via Zoom, right? You can't put up a whiteboard and have him sketch stuff out the same way you could if you were doing it in person. That's unfortunate, I guess. At his pro day, the pro days and things like that are taking place currently right now. Florida State's pro day is going on or went on this morning, and I'm not sure as far as Alabama's pro day when it's going to be, but or what Barmore is going to do as far as participate in that. But I guess then all the teams will be able to kind of see how he kind of takes direction. But the fact that they're going to miss out on some of that because of the COVID situation is really disappointing. Again, you don't want to make mistakes. And again, you can, as Sapp said before he met this guy, and he's on Alabama, and, he thought he was a baller, but, the tape doesn't necessarily lie, but there's little things, little intangibles that you want to know about guys. And it's hard to get that from a Zoom call, in other words.
Yeah, it really is, and we're trying to reconnect with Warren here. We're texting right now. He said he's got the worst Wi-Fi in the world. And obviously that's causing some issues today. But
I can't wait to hear what he has to say about the Penn State kid. The name slips top of my head. Jason Oweh. Yeah, who is thought to be one of the most explosive edge rushers in this draft,
right? And
had 0 sacks. I can't wait to hear what Warren Sapp had to say about this guy.
He's one of the guys, as well as some of those Miami guys. And if we can't get Warren Sapp back today, we'll try another day. But we're having some technical issues on Warren's side. But I think really what he was saying is, out of the 5 guys that we sent him for the defensive tackles, and we knew this was not a good defensive tackle class, Mark. Right. I think that's why this team is trying really hard to get Ndamukong Suh back, because there's really nobody in this draft that's going to come in as a day one starter. Even
Scott, they brought Nacho back. I mean, again, a guy that we thought they could live and die without. I mean, that's a very telling thing right there. Again, we love Nacho, don't get me wrong, but that by them bringing him back, that says a lot about what they feel this class is upcoming.
Yeah, and you were just talking about getting to know these guys and doing visits in person, and that's one thing. At least we had the combine last year. At least they had some of these face-to-face meetings at the combine. We had the Senior Bowl, but this year that's not the case. And there was a Senior Bowl, but obviously Jason Light wasn't there. Bruce Arians wasn't there because they're preparing for a Super Bowl run, and thankfully they cashed in. But
in hindsight, Scott, they could have went to the Senior Bowl. They didn't need Bruce. I mean, the way that they whipped the Chiefs, I mean, they could have they beat them with one hand tied behind their back.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Might have been a little closer game, but yeah.
Right. But the thing though is when you get to know somebody, right? It's one thing to dominate college level guards and all that stuff. It's another thing to have an instance where you get to know somebody. Case in point, go back to 2011 when the Buccaneers drafted Daequan Bowers, who was on a lot of people's top 5, top 10 list. And he had the knee injury right before the draft, had the microfracture surgery, and that caused him to slide to the second round. The Buccaneers thought they were going to get a steal, and they had Adrian Claiborne in the first round, and they got the other pass rushing defensive end in Daequan Bowers. And Mark, you look at the stats, and this is why it's kind of scary to do any scouting off the stat sheet alone. Daequan Bowers at Clemson as a junior had 67 tackles, 26 tackles for loss, 15 and a half sacks. He had an interception. He had a scoop and score, I think, off of like a blocked field goal. He was an All-American. But, when Daequan Bowers got to the NFL, you can see why a lot of teams passed on him in the first round, even though he was coming off that injury, is because of the person, because of the character.
And he dominated, as you said, against mediocre talent. And when he got to the NFL, he wasn't up to the challenge. And you remember, Scott, you and I were there when Greg Schiano said it. Greg Schiano said, Daequan Bowers loves to play on Sundays, but you win football games from Monday to Saturday. Yeah. And Daequan didn't want to put that time in because, and you know what? Up until that point, he didn't have to, Scott. Right. He didn't have to. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. He dominated youth league, dominated high school football, dominated Clemson, but just wasn't able to do it at the NFL level. Another example of somebody that really, you tell the story of Mike Jenkins, right?
Long lost leisure. You can watch Daequan Bowers playing the banjo at Southern Baptist this Sunday. I mean, he liked music. That's one.
You can watch him coach USF. He's an assistant coach with USF now. Hopefully, he's not showing him any of his NFL tape to these kids. More of the college tape, I hope.
Yeah, exactly.
But Scott, you brought up a good point when we're talking about these drafts and how these in-person visits can change a tune. Remember Monty Kiffin, and was it Mike Jenkins, the cornerback, that fell asleep in a meeting, and Monty's like, nope, we're not drafting this guy. Was that right? Am I dreaming that?
No, you're exactly right. He was one of the players that was brought in on a local visit because, of course, USF plays at Raymond James Stadium right here in Tampa. And as legend has it, he fell asleep when Monty Kiffin was going over the defense when they had about a couple dozen players in there for the local visit, and that made an impression on Monty Kiffin, not a good one. And Mike Jenkins ended up being, I think, a first-round pick for the Cowboys that year. Yeah. And Tampa Bay took him off the draft board for the first round. I think they had a draftable grade on him. But they did not want him in the first round. Then he went on to have an okay kind of nondescript NFL career. But, Daequan Bowers, I mean, this is a player drafted very high in the second round. Ended up with 7 career sacks. 7. He had 1.5 in his rookie season. Started 6 games, played in 16, had 3 sacks the next year, and then 1 sack, 1.5, and then he was done. And he was done at the age of 25 because he didn't love the game. And I'm just saying, it's like I've never met Christian Barmore. Again, we didn't talk to him at the combine because it wasn't at the combine this year. But when you have a guy of the caliber of Warren Sapp, Hall of Famer, a guy that is one of the elite defensive tackles in NFL history, take the time to go to his friend Yo Murphy's camp here in Tampa, spend some one-on-one time with Christian Barmore. And what did he say to you, Mark? It's like he wanted to see him throw the left hand and he threw the right. Yeah. I mean, that's the stuff that's why you have to dig not just into the player but also the person. Yeah. And we had Levi Onwuzurike as the Bucs pick at number 32, and they still might end up drafting him maybe in the second round, maybe even in the first round, because it's so bad at defensive tackle that that maybe you have to reach a little bit to grab a guy. And Onwuzurike is kind of a toolsy guy with some good feet. I think his hands are pretty good. He was miscast as a nose tackle. He's really a 3 technique. I talked to Jimmy Lake, the Washington head coach, about him, and he raves about him. It's a shame we couldn't get Warren back. I don't know that he's going to be joining us. He's trying to reconnect on the computer, but not sure if it's going to happen. We'll try to get Warren back to talk about the edge rushers, because he was going to talk about Jalen Phillips, Quincy Roche, Gregory Rousseau, obviously playing at Miami, knows those guys very well, and as well as Joe Tryon, Joseph Asai, and Jason Owe. Who's the other guy we had him look at here? Ronnie Perkins and Ellerson Smith from Oklahoma and Northern Iowa, respectively. So,
but the guy that he really mentioned and thought there was something to work there was Bobby Brown III, right? The Texas A&M.
Yeah, if you're looking for a nose tackle, and he's
not first round, he said, but
he's a mid-round guy, 6'4", 325, so he's got some size. And it didn't seem like he was really that high on Aleem McNeil either. And you know what? If you watch Aleem McNeil play last year at North Carolina State, he again was playing nose tackle, and he can do it. But he flashed more in 2019 as a 3 tech, where he got 5.5 sacks, and he only had 1 sack last year. Did have a pick 6 though. He was a high school running back, Mark, very much like Vita Vea, but grew out of the position, 6'2", 320. So he's got some tools to work with, and I think he's a player that's going to be in that 2nd, 3rd round. And again, you're going to see some defensive linemen, and you might even see Christian Barmore go in the 1st round, Mark, because this is not a good year for defensive tackle.
Yeah, I mean,
so
and teams,
you got to get one early and overdraft the position.
Yeah, and I hope the Buccaneers don't do that. Look, if they evaluate Barmore as the 32nd best guy and he's on the board and they take him, that's on them. That's fine. I don't, whatever. That's their deal. But I don't want them to overdraft a guy. They don't need to do that, because they don't have that glaring weakness on this football team. John and I talked about it last week. If you want to pick one position, you could maybe say running back, right? You could solidify that room a little bit. And look, the Buccaneers have got to start thinking the future. Shaq Barrett's 28, going to be 29. JPP is probably on his last year. You know what I mean? They've got to be looking at guys. But again, you can't overdraft and waste a pick just based on need. The good news is there's not a ton of needs on this football team as far as immediate needs. Now, again, you got to be looking down the road. Bruce Arians might be here 1 more year, 2 more years. Jason Light hopes to be here another 15 or 20 years. I mean, he's not planning on going anywhere, so he doesn't want to leave the cupboard bare. He's not going to just walk away into the sunset if they win another Super Bowl next year, as Bruce might. So they've got to be looking to the future. But the Buccaneers don't need to overdraft a guy. I mean, if they've got a 3rd round grade on Barmore, as Sapp probably does, stick to that and just take the best player available. Nice advantage to and another thing, being 32nd, Scott, it's essentially a 2nd round pick, right?
It is. Yeah.
It's so much pressure when you're in the top 15. So much pressure. When you get out of the top 15, it gets a little bit better. When you get down 30, 31, 32, it's essentially a 2nd round pick. And you have flexibility to pick up more picks down the road, because there is a team out there that'll want to move back up in that 1st round. They always want to do that, because then they can guarantee that 5th-year option availability on a player.
Yeah, matter of fact, you saw Mark Dominic do that with Doug Martin at
2012.
Yeah. Yep. And then the Baltimore Ravens did that to get Lamar Jackson with the 32nd pick. Yep. So there is some value there at number 32 for that reason. Whether it's the Buccaneers sticking and picking at 32 and getting that player with the 5th-year option, and we saw the Buccaneers pick up the 5th-year option for O.J. Howard, who will be playing on that this year. Later this spring, you're going to see them pick up the 5th-year option on Vita Vea. That's a rock solid certainty, and so we'll get a good feel for that. Also wanted to talk about one of our amazing sponsors, Symbol. Folks, if you haven't had a chance to check out Symbol, this is a really cool way to integrate stocks and fantasy sports. Symbol is the stock market for sports that allows you to trade sports teams like stocks and earn cash payouts when your team wins. Symbol has blended sports and the stock market to offer you a new way to invest in and profit off of your favorite teams. Use your sports knowledge to buy low, sell high, earn cash payouts when your teams win. Join the over 2,000 early adopters like myself who have already started to invest in their favorite teams. The stock market for sports, just a tap away. Create a free account in seconds and start profiting from your sports knowledge. The Sim Bucs franchise value this week is $44. That's up from $37. And you can go to www.symbol.app/pewterreport.com. And when you sign up there, you're going to get a $10 bonus when you use the promo code Pewter Report. So
I think you can buy the Jets for $10 a share right now. I think maybe $3 a share, something like that.
You might be able to do that. They
spent $75 million so far in free agency, I heard. Scott, you and I know this. That is not a way to build a football team. I mean, yes, if you can get Tom Brady as part of that 25 or 75 minutes, but you don't win football games in March in free agency. The Buccaneers, Lord knows, they have tried over the years to do that. It's
you can kind of say that the Buccaneers did a little bit last year with Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski, but that's more the exception and not.
And they were the complementary pieces to what they had already built through years of really solid drafts. To be honest with you, I mean,
let's take a look at this real quick. Right on the offensive side, homegrown players: Donovan Smith, draft pick. Ali Marpet, Ronald Jones. You had
Alex Kappa.
Alex Kappa, right? Those were all draft picks from the Buccaneers. And let's not forget a guy like Chris Godwin and Mike Evans.
Yeah.
Jason Light's best draft pick to this day.
O.J. Howard.
Wide receiver, O.J. Howard, while he was playing. On the defensive side, in the Super Bowl, it was even more homegrown on that side of the ball, Mark. The entire secondary, pretty much. We're talking about Antoine Winfield Jr. as a rookie, Mike Edwards, Jordan Whitehead, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis III, Levante David,
Devin White,
Vita Vea, right? So we're talking a whole bunch. I think that's 8 guys we just mentioned on the defense.
Scott, you missed Anthony Nelson.
I did miss
Your
Anthony.
Favorite, John's favorite player, Anthony Nelson.
Right, Anthony Nelson. So that's another one. So that's what we're looking at here is it should be used, and talking about free agency, to supplement your roster.
Right. Like
the Bucs did the first go around with the Brad Johnson in 2000, and then Simeon Rice a year later in 2001. Greg Spires joining the team from
Florida State,
Florida
State University.
Greg Spires, the Crane, coming in along with the likes of left tackle Roman Oben and Kerry Jenkins at left guard. And Michael Pittman and Joe Jaravicius and Keenan McCardell, right? So those were those free agency guys, and Ken Dilger and Ricky Dudley. So, those are the players that helped the Mike Allstotts, the Warren Sapps, the Rondé Barbers.
You get into free agency when you screw up in the draft, and you know what? Guess what? And you've got to redraft again, and you set yourself back a little bit. You look at that 2016 draft. No need to beat up Jason Light anymore, because no one has beaten himself up more than Jason Light himself for that draft. But they had a lot of corrections to make. They had to bring some guys in, and they had to, they had to sign, kickers, like Ryan Suckup this year to make up for a Roberto Aguayo pick. And the next couple of years, really completely rebuild that secondary. After the Vernon Hargraves miscue. So, but overall, you don't build football teams and win. We can go to 2014, Lovie Smith's first year, Jason Light's first year. They tried that with the Alteron Verners, the Michael Johnsons, the Anthony Collins, the Josh McCowns, Brandon Myers at tight end, I think was that year as well.
Yeah. The only guy worth the damn from that class was Clint McDonald.
He
was the least heralded guy. He actually ended up playing every year of his contract.
Yep.
So, but we see Chris Baker getting mentioned. Deshaun Jackson. There's been a lot of guys that have been busts for sure.
Why? Let me stop you real quick. And you just mentioned Deshaun Jackson. A little off topic, Buccaneer wise. Why in the world would the Rams sign him when AB is out there? I mean, again, I get the questionable character of Antonio Brown, but good Lord, when you look at talent, ability, and his production, what AB was able to do in 8 games last year is more than Deshaun Jackson was able to do really here in Tampa Bay or his last 2 years with the Eagles as well. that was kind of a shocker to me. If you're looking for a veteran speed, guy that can make some plays after the catch, I would have thought that the Rams would have been all over that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
The lure of the speed. The problem is at age, I think 33 now, Deshaun Jackson. He gets hurt so often. I mean, he's a shell of his former self. I think he's played an average of 8 games over the last 2 or 3 years. So you're getting a part-time player, and he's great when he's healthy.
Remember the Bucs' first
hamstring? He's no good.
Remember that Bucs' first touchdown drive in the Super Bowl? I don't know if it was third down, but it was play action, and it was a high ball to Antonio Brown, and he went up and he made the catch for a first down. It was a stop and go type route.
Yep.
I thought to myself, not then, but when I was rewatching the game, I don't know why it popped in my head. I don't know that Deshaun Jackson makes that catch. I don't think he leaves his feet for that ball. I mean, that's just not what he did. We remember a game against the Carolina Panthers when the Buccaneers were trying to come back. Ryan Fitzpatrick had started that game. They flip-flop between him and Winston, and it was a desperation throw. Trying to get ball to Deshaun. He never even attempted to catch the ball. I mean, the defender looked like the receiver in that. Deshaun Jackson never even attempted. Anyway, I'll get off the Deshaun Jackson thing. Not a fan of Deshaun Jackson at all. Sorry.
And listen, the thing is from what we understand, here's the latest news. The Bucs are trying to re-sign Ndamukong Suh,
yes,
Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown. The price has to be right for those players to come back. And I think that those players not getting an awful lot of play out there, maybe Leonard Fournette the most. But I think all three we're going to realize this is kind of like reality week. This is free agency was last week. All the big deals are done. This is welcome back to reality week, where the prices are a lot lower than you were hoping for and expecting. And that plays, to the Buccaneers' hands. But the thing is Antonio Brown, when he was signed, Mark, he was signed to be an insurance policy.
Yeah.
Right? An insurance policy. And Mark, if we were going to tell our Pewter Report readers, listeners, and viewers where to go for insurance, where the hell would we send them?
Well, you know where you're not going to go? You're not going to go to the big box stores, Scott. I like personal service, and that's what I love about Briar Greaves. Briar Greaves has handled my homeowner's insurance for probably going on 10 years now. Briar Greaves has been in business for over 30 years. He insures some Buccaneer players, has had coaches in the past. He's a huge Buccaneer fan. Him and his son, Sam, they do a tremendous job. But it's a personal service and attention that you're going to get at Briar Greaves that you're not going to get when you just call an 800 number from a television commercial, whether they're going to save you 15% or more. Listen, Briar Greaves, I told John this last week. He actually wrote a policy for a company, I believe it was out in Texas a couple weeks ago. He saved this company $15,000. Now, he's not probably going to save any of us listening right now $15,000 unless you have a large business and a large commercial fleet of vehicles. But even if he saves you $300 or $500 or $1,000 over the course of a year or two, all that money adds up. The great thing about Briar Greaves is all you got to do is call him up and let him compare. Doesn't charge anything.
That's right.
You fax over, you email, you scan, you beep him, whatever you want to do. Just send him over your policy. That's what you did, Scott. You sent him over what you currently had. He took a look at it and found you a better rate. I mean, that's exactly what Briar Greaves does. There's no obligation to do that. And there's nobody listening to this podcast right now that doesn't need some form of insurance. Even if you just rent your place, you need renter's insurance. It's relatively cheap. You can probably get a renter's policy for less than $200 a year. Call Briar Greaves. Maybe you need life insurance. Maybe you need homeowners insurance. Maybe you need commercial business insurance. They can take care of you. Again, Briar Greaves has been in business for over 30 years. BriarGreavesInsurance.com. That is the place to go. You can reach them at 876-4166. That's area code 813-876-4166. Make sure to thank him for being a Pewter Report podcast sponsor. Good people. Even if you don't do business with them, you can talk some Buccaneer football. They're always eager to do that.
Yep. Well, and the thing is we enjoy talking Buccaneer football and some defensive tackle prospects with Warren Sapp. We're going to have him back on. He apologizes that couldn't finish the podcast. The Wi-Fi signal from the start was giving him some issues.
We got to send him to McDonald's or Panera. Remember back in the day, Scott, when our computers would go out, you and I would have to go down to a neighborhood Panera or sit in a parking lot. We sat in a parking lot in somewhere between Mobile, Alabama, and home, Scott, up in the Panhandle somewhere, and use their Wi-Fi to put up stories one time, because that's how dedicated we were. We're gonna have to send Warren out to a McDonald's, and even if he didn't go in, just sit in the parking lot and use their Wi-Fi. It's got to be better than he had today.
he'll be back. Hopefully, maybe later this week. We'll see what his schedule is. But I've done an interview with Warren Sapp that we'll have in this week's SR's Fab 5, where he touches on some different things. But he certainly touched on the defensive tackle class today. Mark said it wasn't very good. And boy, kind of absolutely.
He bet his social media career for a year. If Christian Barmore is a first-round draft pick after the evaluations happen, he won't tweet, Facebook, or Instagram for a full year. I don't know that he's going to be able to stick to that. Because,
well, and I'll tell you what, you know who might end up sacking Warren Sapp's social media is the Raiders. I've seen Barmore linked to the Raiders with his good friend John Gruden and Mike Mayock.
Oh, Mike Mayock, yes.
Tackle. And so that they are one to watch there.
Mayock loves the overdraft defensive tackles.
I know. Well, yeah, you saw with defensive end Cleveland Farrell. 4th overall, the Buccaneers were like this, trying so hard to get Devin White.
Yes.
They were afraid that Devin White was going to be selected 4th overall. A huge sigh of relief at one Buccaneer place when the Raiders gaffed, and ended up picking Cleveland Farrell, who's an okay guy, but he's not the 4th best player. Certainly not the caliber of playmaker that Devin White is for this Buccaneer defense. But so in a nutshell, Warren Sapp said Christian Barmore, let's face it, I mean, Christian Barmore got sacked by Warren Sapp today.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's eye-opening because there's a lot of Buccaneer fans out there that have really warmed up to the idea of Barmore possibly being there at number 32 for the Buccaneers. But the only defensive tackle he liked out of the entire class was Levi Onwuzurike, but thought of him more as a 3rd-round pick, which really, interestingly enough, for the Buccaneers, if that draft analysis is spot on, and listen, Warren Sapp's not perfect, right? He has his own favorites and stuff. There's some swings and misses. I don't think he was a huge fan of Myles Garrett coming out of the draft from Texas.
He wasn't a huge fan of Vita Vea, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
It's panned out pretty good.
It's just his opinion, and everybody's got him. But this guy does know a thing or two about playing defensive tackle, and he thought Onwuzurike, who is coached by Jimmy Lake out there at University of Washington and was in our latest Pewter Report mock draft. Again, the next Pewter Report mock draft drops tomorrow, Tuesday. So look for that around noon on pewterreport.com. We're shaking things up. We are.
Oh, you're teasing us a little bit. You're going to give us any hints, anything? No, just that it's going to be different than the last one.
It's going to be a defensive player at number 32 for the Buccaneers. It's not going to be Christian Barmore, that's for sure. And it's not going to be Levi Onwuzurike, so it's going to be a different defensive player. And I think this one's going to shake things up a little bit. Mark, you were right on the money when you said when you're picking 32, you really have to. You always hear this, right, from general managers and coaches. We're going to let the draft come to us. At 32, you have no choice but to let the draft come to you because you don't know who's going to be there. I've seen Zaven Collins, who's a popular name. I've seen him go everywhere from the top 10 to number 32. He's the kid out of Tulsa who's not really a full-on edge rusher. He's more of a kind of jack of all trades linebacker, off the ball linebacker. He can rush and blitz. I think he's got the skill set and the size and athleticism, playmaking ability to be a fit in Todd Bowles' defense. And we've seen Azeez Ojulari from Georgia be another fit. Is it going to be one of those guys? Is it going to be somebody else? Well, stay tuned to pewterreport.com tomorrow, Buck fans, because we're going to have a brand new mock draft. 7 rounds for the Buccaneers, including that 6th-round compensatory pick the team got. So it'll be a loaded mock draft. We have Mark Cook's Pewter Report Monday mailbag on the website right now. I love that creamsicle look out there, Mark. As I was drinking this creamsicle heat orange flavored beverage of choice this morning.
Yep.
We were looking at Rondé Barber in that orange jersey. What are your thoughts? I mean, think the league's going to blink? You're going to do some research.
I do think they're going to blink, Scott. And the more I think about it is and I wrote about it. It's not just the Buccaneers that are affected by this. There's a number of teams, including the Patriots. And this is a big revenue generator, and it does spark some excitement and nostalgia for these teams. I think they're going to blink on this. I don't know that the rule makes a ton of sense, Scott. I mean, you get one helmet. I get what they're trying to do if they're trying to eliminate lawsuits, but I get what they're trying to do. They fit you in one helmet at the beginning of the year. You have to wear that helmet all year. What if for some reason there's malfunction with that helmet? Do you just not get to play anymore? No, you get another helmet. And why can't they just fit two helmets? A pewter one and a white one. It's not that difficult, NFL, but sometimes they like to make things more difficult. I think they're going to blink. I really do. Bruce Arians kind of spilled the beans on it a little bit. Now, you got to remember, this was also last March when Bruce mentioned that. That was before the new uniforms. I don't know that there's as much of a clamoring from Buccaneer fans this year for a throwback as there would have been last year, because they just hated those uniforms so much, right? So one less home game in those uniforms. But you're
talking about where is it right there? The old
alarm
clock numbers on them.
Yeah. But I listen, it's a huge revenue generator for the NFL. The Buccaneers do sell some orange stuff, nostalgic stuff in their team store. There's some stuff available on the NFL website, but I'm talking, you're going to see a ton of number 12 orange jerseys. Tom Brady, who also is a big fan of that color, not just other people. I mean, Brady has some orange TB12 shirts, you know?
Yeah. It was Instagram or Twitter, one of the two. He was talking about, he's like, I got to play in these uniforms. And it's interesting because when the Buccaneers in 2009, they had 4 straight years of playing the throwback game. They won the first one, believe it or not. Josh Freeman and the Buccaneers came back.
The Packers.
Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in 2009, only one of 3 wins that year for the Raheem Morris Buccaneers. But 4 straight years of playing in those throwback orange creamsicle uniforms. And then that rule went into effect. So Lovie Smith didn't get the opportunity to. But you know who the driving force was for that game? Was Rondé Barber. That's what Warren Sapp said. Rondé Barber was the guy. They went to the Glazers and said, "Hey, I never got the chance to play in the throwback uniforms, the old creamsicle uniforms, because he was drafted in '97."
Right.
So, and the funny thing is, Rondé Barber told me, I want to say probably around like '99 or 2000. He said, "Thank God I didn't get drafted a year earlier. I had to play in those garish-looking uniforms, right? So I got here right in time. I missed that." But then I think that kind of cool factor, a couple years removed from it, you wanted to go throwback, right? And so I think that's one thing Rondé Barber in his illustrious career wanted to do. So he was the driving force going to Brian Ford and the Glazers and getting the throwback game back in 2009. So interesting bit of tidbit there. So
I didn't know that. That's good stuff. And I hope they're able to do that again. For me, being an old guy, I grew up on that. I mean, I literally had the orange footy pajamas. I mean, there's my school picture from 1978. I'll tweet it out after this. My school class picture, I'm wearing a Buccaneer Bruce t-shirt. This is 1978. So I've got that nostalgic factor. I miss those uniforms. Certainly. I was one of the few people in 1997 when they revealed the new uniforms that probably cried. But anyway, I do like the uniforms they currently have. They're very sharp.
Well, and just to kind of wrap up the uniform talk here, they really can't paint the helmets for 1 week because they're coming from the factory with that type of paint.
Right.
And they do put stickers on them. All those decals on the side of the helmet, that's not a problem. And if you're a team like the Steelers or the Bears where that original helmet color is there, you can peel off the stickers and go throwback, etc. Even the Denver Broncos have gotten away with that, Mark. It's that they had that Denver blue beforehand, and then they went to the darker blue when they went to the more streamlined horse on got the big D and the horse blowing smoke or snot, whatever it is, out of its nose.
Both.
But my point is when they have gone throwback, they've had to do that with the darker helmet, so it's not a complete match.
Not a true throwback, right?
Right. But it just would look a little weird having a pewter helmet with the orange Buccaneer Bruce on the side of it. I think you have to go with the classic white helmet in order to do that. So, again, we want to appreciate Warren Sapp joining us today to talk at least defensive tackles. We'll see if we can get him on the podcast again soon to finish up the conversation and talk edge rushers, because he did have something to say about those Miami guys, Jalen Phillips, Quincy Roche, Gregory Rousseau. as well as a couple of the edge rushers that we got him to take a look at too.
I wanted to ask him about Gerald McCoy. I know him and Gerald McCoy were good friends up until he joined our podcast a couple years ago, right, when he ripped Gerald a new one. I don't know if they still talk, but I would be curious to see what his thoughts would have been. That was a question that I had written down that I was going to ask him, about Gerald McCoy rejoining this football team.
We've had Warren Sapp on the podcast twice. He sacked Gerald McCoy the first time a couple years ago. Yeah. He sacked Christian Barmore today, the Alabama supposed first round defensive line prospect, defensive tackle prospect. So we'll see if we can get him on. Let's see if Warren can sack one of the edge rushers on the next edition of the Pewter Report podcast. So for Mark Cook, I'm Scott Reynolds. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be back tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday at 4:00. John Ledyard will be on with me tomorrow talking Bucs free agency, as we'll see if Ndamukong Suh, if Leonard Fournette, if Antonio Brown, if one of these guys or maybe all three get back in the fold as the Buccaneers look to repeat. So for Mark Cook, I'm Scott Reynolds saying we'll see you tomorrow on another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.
Deuces.